If everybody take their places. I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. I'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Allen.
Present.
Auger.
Here.
Barrero.
Here.
Castro.
Here.
Davis. Here. Donahue. Here. Ford. Here. Braz. Here. Gillen. Here. Heyman. Here. Here. Kenyon. Here. Kazari. Here. Lash.
Here.
Lewis. Here. Molina. Pollock. Here. Sheffro. Here. Silva.
Here.
Smith. Here. Sterrett.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Vasquez. Here. Winecki.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Thank you to all the board members for coming today. I'd like to begin by asking Ms. Joan Zethan to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. She is with the Kane County Association of Home and Community Education. Would everyone please rise?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd also like to ask Chaplain Hendrik Boer from Fox Valley Physician Services to come forward and lead us in prayer. Would you please rise?
Let's join in prayer. Father God, we thank you for the grace and mercy that you have showered upon us, Lord. We are living in luxury. We are living in plenty. We are living in comfort, Lord. There are so many who are not. So we thank you for the many, many blessings that we have. We thank you for the blessing of freedom. We thank you for the blessing of managing our country's affairs, our local county's affairs. We pray, Lord, that you will bless this body as it deliberates, that it may pursue justice and mercy. We pray that you will lead this body to deal with kindness in conflicts, with grace and mercy as they consider the various issues that are before them. Lord, we just ask for your presence and your love to surround this body in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain, and pleasure to see you again. Okay, next is approval of the minutes for September 10th, 2013. I'd like to ask for a motion, Ms. Sterrett, and a second, Mr. Kozarek. Any comments or questions, additions, amendments? If none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Okay, the first presentation we have today is Probation Victim Services Funds to a local service agency, and I'd like to ask Chief Judge Judy Braca to come forward, do the honors.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, elected officials, ladies and gentlemen. This distinguished legislative body is well known for its careful analysis and the exercise of your elected duties. And Illinois may not be the show me state, but this is definitely the show me board. And so understanding that, I thought it would be appropriate to show you some numbers. And you do have a handout on that. And if we have extras of the handouts, Lee, if you could pass them out to the gallery. I'm going to direct your attention to that little handout, Mental Health by the Numbers. And I think that the first set of numbers, unless you are a sincere watcher of the news and reader, you might not recognize, but it's in pairs. And these pairs reflect numbers related to tragedies. 6 and 19 was the 2008 numbers from the shooting at NIU, 6 fatalities, 19 injured. 12 and 70 was the Aurora, Colorado theater shootings. 27 and 341, and that 341 comes from medical diagnoses of mental health issues, were the shootings at Sandy Hook. 27 dead, 341 injured, and then treated as well for mental health issues resulting from the presence at that tragedy. 13-1 was last month at the Navy base in Washington, and 1-2 was last week in Washington with the shooting that occurred with the woman with postpartum depression. What these all have in common is mental illness. And it is with great pleasure that I can address you on issues of mental illness today. It's emphasizing to all of us the importance of recognizing and treating mental illness as vigorously as any other physical illness is treated, like diabetes or heart disease or pulmonary dysfunction. If we treated mental illness and recognized it instead of stigmatizing it like we treat other physical illnesses, who's to say whether any of those numbers would have happened at all? We do know that untreated and unaddressed mental illness can lead to serious, if not fatal, consequences. And that's why I am so pleased and honored to stand before you on behalf of the 16th Judicial Circuit judges, along with partners in both service providers and organizations and other court individuals, to stand here before you. And I'm going to ask for those who are here as mental health providers or who work in the mental health courts or organizations involving mental health, if you could just stand for a moment to show how many are here to the board so that they know who is present. Thank you, folks. And even though the courts generally are not proactive, we're reactive, mental health is one of the proactive areas that we are involved with, because the burden that it brings to the justice system in which we deal with the criminalization of the mentally ill, when prevention, an ounce could be a pound of cure for the expenses, the costs, the delay, and the influx of people into the criminal justice area. And so, in joining with these partners, the 16th Judicial Circuit, as you know, has the Treatment Alternative Court, which is an alternative mental health court for individuals charged with certain crimes. We have a Kane County Mental Health Protocol Task Force, which works on issues involving how to treat and handle mental health interventions. And you have our copy of our brand new brochure that has been prepared. It's green. It indicates Kane County Mental Health Intervention Resource Guide. And I have to tell you that green is the mental health color. You know, they have a lot of different colors attached with different causes. Green is for mental health. And we wanted to give you the sample of this brand new brochure, which has been the product of hard work through the Diagnostic Center, through Lee Bell, our TAC court coordinator, and other contributors, that sets out resources and references that we hope that the police and other mental health interveners will be able to distribute to the public, both those who suffer from mental illness and their families who suffer along with them. And in terms of this presentation, I am very happy to indicate Resolution 13289, which we expect this board to pass today, which recognizes this week, October 6th through 13th, as Mental Illness Awareness Week. The common thread, obviously, that unites everyone is the interest in treatment and assistance of mental illness. It is a problem that should, in fact, as I said, be recognized. The rest of the numbers I know you probably do recognize on that sheet. First is Kane County's population from the 2012 census. And I do have to tell you that we're lucky that we had a copy of the printout from the internet, because the internet is down. All the websites are closed for the federal government. So luckily, we had a copy of those latest figures. 522,487. The estimates from the Illinois Psychiatric Association, which has been accepted by other credible institutions, is that on a yearly basis, 1 in 4 adults will experience a mental illness in a given year. Not a serious mental illness, but an episode or a mental illness, including depression. Out of the population, generally, it is accepted that 1 in 17 suffer a serious mental illness. Schizophrenia, major depression, bipolar disorder. So if we're looking at Kane County numbers, we're talking about approximately 25,000 people may have a serious mental illness here in our county, undiagnosed. The diagnosis is different from the recognition. And when you combine the figures of the prevalence and the occasion of mental illness, add now the mix of homelessness. There's a range of estimates of homelessness ranging from 11 people per 10,000 to 19 people per 10,000 in a given population. It depends on rural and urban and mostly urban areas. So that 575 to 993 could be our homeless population here in Kane County. But if you talk to the providers, I think they're going to tell you that it's even higher. Because that next number, 694, is the number of children in U46 alone for the school year of 2012 and 13 that were reported as homeless enrolled. Just in U46, 694 children were identified as being homeless, served in U46. And so those numbers actually in Kane County are higher than what those estimates are. And out of the homeless, we know from different studies that up to 25% can have a serious mental illness. Schizophrenia, major depression, bipolar disorder. And so it's with this next resolution, which is in fact the presentation that we would like to make, that we are pleased to indicate Resolution 1282, which is the presentation from the required distribution of funds from probation fees under general order and under statute to disperse back into our community a portion, 2% of funds that are collected for victim services. Because the mentally ill and the homeless are in fact victims. Maybe victims of mental illness, but you will find so many other victimizations that run with those. Domestic violence, sexual abuse, assault, the victims of crimes. And so it is with great pleasure that we are able, because of the fees that have been collected, to make a presentation to 3 local organizations that provide mental health services to the homeless in Kane County. And to do that presentation, I'd like to introduce the Executive Director of Court Services, Lisa Aus, to do that introduction, and we'll ask those folks that are present also to come forward.
Thank you, Judge. In your packet today is that resolution asking for you to affirm the Chief's ability to distribute those funds. This year we've chosen 3 organizations who work primarily with mentally ill people, and we've asked them to dedicate these funds to working with the homeless, mentally ill, or those who are at risk of being homeless or have a history of homelessness. And we're very fortunate in Kane County to have 3 agencies distributed across this county who do work with that population. So I'll identify them. The first one is Ren's Addiction Counseling Center. And when I mention your agency or call your name, come on up. And we have checks for you. The Ren's Addiction Counseling Center is located in Elgin. Here today should be Jerry Skogmo, the Executive Director, Scott Austin, the Project Director of the CHIP program. Ren's was established in 1961, and they are dedicated to the prevention, intervention, and treatment of addictive behaviors and disorders often associated with addiction. They run what's called the Community Homeless Integrated Project. It's a comprehensive case management service for substance abusing individuals who are at risk of or homeless. CHIP case managers work in collaboration with 5 other social service agencies and provide counseling and case management services to help clients obtain mental health services, job skills, entitlements, and medical services. Next is the Association for Individual Development, located in Aurora. Here today is Michelle McMullen, who's the Vice President of Behavioral Health, Charles Miles, who's the Chairman of the AID Board of Directors and a Strategic Planner for Caterpillar, and Lynn O'Shea, who's the Executive Officer. For 50 years, AID has provided services to individuals who have developmental, physical, and mental disabilities. They also offer services to those who've suffered trauma or those at risk of trauma. As a office manager for the Aurora Probation Office, we actually worked with AID quite a bit for their outreach. They have outreach workers that go to the scene of shootings and things like that, and they identify potential victims and those experiencing trauma and help to intervene with them. They serve more than 5,000 clients in 20 programs operating in 45 communities. AID is a leading provider of services that addresses the unique needs of individuals at every stage in their lives. The next agency is Eckerd Center, located at the north end of the county in Elgin also. Karen Beyer is the executive director for Eckerd Center. They were founded in 1955. The Eckerd Center for Mental Health provides an array of outpatient mental health services. They're invaluable to our team on the mental health court. They focus primarily with adults with mental illness and their families. Services range from intervention to recovery and include crisis, psychiatric, case management, rehabilitation, residential, and psychotherapy assistance. So those are our 3 recipients. Unfortunately, what we have to offer is not a lot for their programming needs. We only had 21,000 to distribute this year, so that's 7,000 each. It's all that we have, and we're distributing every penny. I wish that we could give more.
We asked to make this presentation before the board because it is with your commitment for funding for judiciary that makes programs possible, your support that allows us to collect those probation fees to make grants like this possible as well. And so in recognition of that, I'm going to ask, please, of Mr. Chairman and the Chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Ms. Winicki, if you could step down and stand here. We'd like to take a picture with all of our recipients so that we can have a photograph with everybody. If you'll face out this way for us and with your checks, we are so pleased to have you here. And they're going to take it this way. So, no, face, turn around and face. Oh, they came down. That's good. We could do it that way. Which way? This is fine. I didn't think, I'm pleased that they stepped off the dais.
Okay. Their fees are already being collected no matter what, so the money's there. Fees are still going to be there.
That's all right. You're coming at my center here.
Otherwise, I'll have to check.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're dressed different if you would have known.
Thank you very much for everyone who serves this important need. The next, Mark is our guest here. Next is a presentation of 2013 Best Practice Award for the from the American Planning Association, Illinois chapter to the Kane County Board for Kane County Planning Cooperative 2040 Plan Implementation. Mark Van Kerkhoff, and is the APA rep here?
Yes, she is.
Okay.
Lindy Wordlaw drove all the way out from Chicago this morning to join us and present this award to the Kane County Board. So I will turn it over to Lindy.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning. On behalf of the American Planning Association, the Illinois chapter, I'm pleased to present the Kane County Board with the 2013 Best Practices Award for the Kane County Planning Cooperative for implementing the 2040 plan. The Kane County Planning Cooperative's practice of fully integrating health, transportation, and land use planning is leading to success in implementing the 2040's plan primary goal of achieving the healthiest residents in Illinois. The innovative collaboration between the three sectors of the cooperative is now serving as a model for other governmental agencies and serving as a tool to capture and distribute funding and technical assistance, and all-encompassing planning entity that has Kane County in the best possible position to implement smart growth principles, which are leading to improved public health outcomes. The awards jury stated, health, land use, and transportation concerns make a good foundation from which to engage in county-level planning. Pointing the way to successful plan implementation are the 4 activities described in the plan. Number 1, creation of a planning cooperative. Number 2, a planning workshop series. 3, county funding decisions consistent with plan goals. And 4, coordination with the municipalities. And I wanted to add an extra note about the awards jury. What was something that I find really fascinating with the APA Illinois chapter is that there's no room for biases and territorial attitudes in the awards process. All of the plans and submissions were vetted by our neighbors in Missouri who have they don't have relationships like we have here in Illinois. So these people read your plan and were just amazed by it. And so I always like to point that out with the Illinois chapter awards, that planners and people from another state thought that your plan was the best plan and deserving of this award. So without any further ado, the 2013 Best Practices Award is presented to Kane County for their 2040 plan implementation. Congratulations.
May I ask, will come over. May I ask the chairman of all the committees that relate into this effort, 3 that occur to me right away: public health, transportation, human services, any other of those members. And thank you so much to our staff. You know what the name? Agriculture.
They're all here.
Good morning.
How are we going to?
I don't know. Okay, there we go.
Red camera. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you again for all the good work that goes into that, and it really is the integration and weaving the threads that go through the fabric of everything that we do. Ms. Allen?
Chairman, we also have a group of volunteers called the Regional Plan Commission, which vet these plans before they come to us. So they do a lot of the homework for us, and I'd just like you to mention them as well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ms. Allen. Next on the agenda is Chairman's short program. I would like to defer my time until later on in the program because we have a really full schedule. But I would just like to mention that I had, Sarah and I had a chance to go back to my 35th reunion from the Harvard Business School this past weekend. I mean, I know there are people in this room who aren't 35 years old. And so it kind of, there was a lot of retrospect, putting things in perspective. I did play my last rugby match, and I came back alive off the field. Very happy about that. But next to my love for Sarah and our children, the greatest joy in my life is that I have the privilege of serving with you on the board, 500,000 constituents, our staff members. You know, the difference between serving in Springfield and serving here is enormous. The look in people's eyes when they have the satisfaction of serving their neighbors and doing such a good job. Again, it's producing results with very, very little drama. And that is very important. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you. Okay, we have at least one speaker, let's see, on the agenda item to come forward up to 3 minutes. Ms. Renee D. from Sugar Grove on Resolution 13280, proclaiming October 13th through 19th, 2013, Kindness in Kaneland, KIK Week. So,
Chairman Lawson,
Renee?
if possible, I was going to pull that resolution off to discuss it in the agenda, and if it's all right with you, if she
Sure.
can speak at that time, would be great.
Sure, that's fine. Thank you. That's all right with the board? Okay. Now to zoning committee, zoning petitions. Mr. Donahue, would you like to present and make a motion to approve?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have one petition today, number 4302 from David Richmond and others. This is a special use to allow a senior retreat home on the south side of CV Road, approximately a half-mile west of Deer Path in Blackberry Township. The Development Committee recommended approval of this, as did the Zoning Board of Appeals, along with the staff recommendation that they dedicate right-of-way along the frontage 33 feet from the center line of CV Road. And so I will make the motion on that. I'd also like to mention that we do have two speakers representing the petitioner here, Simone Mitchell-Peterson representing the petitioner, and Jim Cook, who is the attorney for the petitioner. I just want to ask if you would like to make a presentation at this time, or if you are just here to answer questions.
We're just here to answer questions.
Okay, so I'll make the motion on this petition.
Okay, motion's made. Second. Mr. Fraz, any discussion on the petition? Ms. Wonicky.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one quick question. Since David Richmond is the one who is the petitioner, I guess we never did discuss who will manage this home for Dave. Will Dave Richmond actually be the manager? Will it be a service that comes in to manage this senior center?
I'm Jim Cook. I represent the Little Brothers. Dave Richmond is selling it to my client. And so my client, Little Brothers, will be the ones that will actually manage this facility.
And it's a regular senior service, like a management facility? Or?
You know what? Maybe I'll have my client just give you a short outline of what they do. I think that'd be very...
And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and the organization.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Simone Mitchell-Peterson. I'm the CEO of Little Brothers Friends of the Elderly. And just for clarification, it is not a senior center, it is a retreat center. We view it as an opportunity for seniors within Kane County and beyond, and also Chicago, to have the opportunity to get away on a vacation. So it isn't sort of traditionally in the sense of a senior center. To your question about who will manage the property, obviously Little Brothers will be front and center. We will look to have somebody living on site and also contracting possibly with a management company.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions? Mr. Fraz?
Mr. Chairman, this is in my district, and I know several of the board members are familiar with this house, but it's a big, sprawling country house, and I can't think of any structure in the county more perfectly suited for this cause. It even has an elevator shaft roughed in which they're going to require. So it was just absolutely perfect. It's on a fairly large tract of land. It's surrounded by open space and ponds and so forth. So it's absolutely ideal for what they're requiring.
Okay. Any other thoughts, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Donahue. Okay, resolutions and ordinances. First of all, is there anyone who would like to remove an item from the consent agenda at this time? Ms. Taylor?
280, please.
Okay. Now, if you wouldn't mind, I think that because we have so many people in the room today, it's going to be a little hard to hear each person, and because we want to hear what you have to say, please speak right into the microphone so that everyone can hear you. So, let's see, that was number 13280? Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Any others? Dr. Silva?
13288 and 13289, please.
Okay, 13288 and 13289. Any others? Okay. If not, may I have a motion, Mr. Hoshite, a motion to pass the consent agenda with the exceptions of 13280, 288, and 289. Is there a second, Mr. Ford? So we have a motion second. Any discussion on the consent agenda items? Ms. Taylor?
I'll have to abstain from 298.
Okay, so, all right.
I will abstain on that one as well.
I'm sorry, you'll need to speak.
I will abstain on that one as well.
Okay. So abstentions from, on number 13290, Ms. Taylor and Mr. Vasquez.
298.
Oh, it's 298. Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. Any other comments, questions? Okay, if not, all those in favor of the motion? Oh, excuse me, a roll call, please.
Allen. Auger. Yes. Barrero. Yes. Castro.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Donahue. Yes. Ford. Yes. Froz.
Yes.
Gilliam.
Yes.
Heyman.
Yes.
Hoshite. Yes. Kenyon. Yes. Kazari.
Yes.
Lash.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Molina.
Yes.
Pollock.
Yes.
Sheffalo.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Smith. Yes. Sterrett.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Vasquez.
Yes.
Winecki.
Yes.
Okay, the motion second passes. Let's go back to the petition 4302. Let's take a roll call on that, just for the record.
The board's aware that you're amending the ordinance with respect to what was recommended by the Department of Transportation concerning CV Road. So we have to take a roll call vote because it's ordinance 4302 as opposed to a voice vote.
Okay, so would the clerk call the roll, please?
Yes. Allen. Auger. Barrero.
Yes.
Castro. Yes. Davis.
Yes.
Donahue. Yes. Ford. Yes. Froz. Yes. Gilliam. Yes. Heyman. Yes. Hoshite.
Yes.
Kenyon. Yes. Kazari.
Yes.
Lash. Yes. Lewis.
Yes.
Molina. Yes. Pollock.
Yes.
Sheffalo.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Sterrett.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Vasquez.
Yes.
Winecki.
Yes.
Okay, the motion second passes again. Okay, going back to number 13280. Let's see, I think, was that Ms. Taylor? Okay, so let's see. So Ms. Taylor, would you like to make a motion to pass this, and then we'll get a second, and then we'll go to you to comment. So Ms. Taylor makes the motion, Ms. Sterrett seconds it. Ms. Taylor.
I'd like to, before the resolution comes forward, I'd like to, if we could, anyone that's here, and I know there's a lot that are here, on behalf of this organization that's called Peak for Kids is what it's called, and it started in the last couple months. If you could stand up, because I know there's an awful lot of people here that are part of that organization. This right here is the group that has started within the Kane School District that it's called, they're called Peak for Kids, and they're starting the concept of stopping the bullying. And the beautiful part is while they're an independent group that's come together, the support that they're getting outside of their own organization is very impressive what's been happening over the last couple weeks, couple months. As an example, there's a representative here from the Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff's Department has come in their effort, come to join their efforts. The Kane School District leadership, the superintendent's here, along with the Kane School Board president's also here. The Regional Office of Education has come in on this, that we believe, and many others as well that weren't able to make it today. The efforts of what they're doing is nothing but a positive to help children be able to turn off the bullying and what's happening in society today, in hopes that situations that happen, as Judge Judy was saying earlier, maybe will never happen at all. So there is a resolution, so would you like to read it, or would you like me to?
If you would, and then do you want to introduce our speaker, Ms. D?
We do. Well, how about we do that first, if that's okay? This is Renee D., one of the leaders within this organization that has spent a ton of time and effort on this, so if you wouldn't mind.
Actually, I need to clarify, the group is actually Kindness Campaign. It's hosted by Peak for Kids. So if everybody here who's here with the Kindness Campaign would like to stand and or come and join me while I read, I would love to have you.
Moral support, how about
Yes. Thank you for letting us take some time to speak about the Kindness Campaign and Kick Week. Please let me start with a quote from one of my family's favorite authors, Dr. Seuss. Unless someone cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. The Kindness Campaign spawned from a small group called Knights Against Bullying, who actually did care a whole awful lot. As we all know, Dr. Seuss was a very smart man, but even though one group may be able to make things better, it takes a community to make things change. Kane School District number 302 has one of the largest geographic areas in the state of Illinois, and with that brings unique challenges in creating a strong community spirit out of 7+ separate villages and townships. But in a very short time, the Kindness Campaign, now which includes over 300 Kane community partners, businesses, organizations, schools, and people who have come together to encourage and promote kindness throughout this community. Some of these community partners include Girl Scouts of Northern Illinois, Alberns Lions Club, Changing Children's World Foundation from Geneva, Sugar Grove Public Library District, Maple Park Police and Library, Elburn Library, YWCA of Aurora, and Kane County Sheriff's Department, and of course, Kane School District number 302, and there's many, many more. Be Nice, Be Happy message provides the community with a mission to practice kindness, encouraging us all to make the right choices, realizing that being nice not only makes others happy, but it makes you happy, us happy as well. We need to look at kindness more comprehensively and realize that to be happy and healthy is all-encompassing and not only includes mental and physical health, but social health as well. Being kind, tolerant, and respectful of others is the key to successful social health. We are very grateful for this proclamation of Kick Week, which is going to be, hopefully, October 13th through the 19th, which is a declared celebration of kindness in the Kane community. And the Kane community has embraced this opportunity to inspire action and innovation, such as contests at the high schools, fundraising by community restaurants, guest speakers at the grade schools, teen weekend, movie weekends at the library, anti-bullying programs by Girl Scouts, celebration moments during high school sports that week, and many more celebrations all over the community. It is important to note that this is being made by people and organizations from seven separate communities. And even those that may not be active in the campaign take the time to say thank you time and time again, wherever we go. So it's important that we thank everyone for their support and efforts. We have only just begun, but I truly hope we are all reveling in pride at this point. In closing, we must acknowledge the most amazing part of this journey, and that is seeing the Kaneland kids embrace this message and create their own programs and their own activities to support and promote the message of kindness. Seeing peer leadership groups affect change in our community is clearly this campaign's biggest success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kate. Okay, was there anything else that you wanted to present, Ms. Taylor?
No, I'm very proud to be able to read this, if I could.
Yes.
Whereas almost 30% of the youth in the United States are estimated to be involved in bullying each year, either as a bully or as a victim, and whereas an estimated 160,000 students in kindergarten through 12th grade miss school every day in fear of being bullied. Whereas bullying can take many forms, including verbal, physical, and most recently cyberspace, and can happen in many places on and off school grounds. And whereas bullying is unacceptable behavior, whereas it is the duty of all citizens, parents, guardians, family, and friends to help develop proper behavior among our children to provide them with good examples. And whereas one simple act of kindness has the potential to generate others that will lift spirits and create goodwill. And whereas showing respect, patience, acceptance, and consideration will help build positive attitudes and a peaceful school, and therefore a more peaceful community. And whereas during the week of October 13 through 19 of 2013, Kaneland School District number 302 will be promoting kindness in Kaneland. Now therefore be it resolved that the Kane County Board hereby proclaim the October 13th through 19th of 2013 as Kindness in Kaneland Week, KIC Week, and further express Kane County's commitment to education and prevention of bullying within our community and the promotion of kindness in Kaneland.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. We have the motion and the second. Ms. Taylor, Ms. Sterrett, any other comments, questions? If not, Mr. Pollack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to acknowledge that we have Representative Linda Chapalavia in the back of the room. It's appropriate that the chairman of elementary and secondary education in Springfield is here when we're discussing a motion relating to schools. So
absolutely. Representative Chapalavia, would you please rise? Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pollack. Ms. Taylor.
Thank all of you guys for all the effort that you've got going. Don't stop what you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, and the clerk will call the roll.
Allen. Auger.
Yes.
Burial.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Donahue. Yes. Ford.
Yes.
Froz.
Yes.
Unum. Heyman.
Yes.
Holshay.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Kazarick.
Yes.
Lash.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Molina.
Yes.
Jeffro.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Sterrett.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Vasquez.
Yes.
Winnicki.
Okay, the motion passes. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next in line is number 13288, Dr. Silva. I believe that was yours.
Good morning. Yes, I'd like to move that, please.
Okay, so Dr. Silva's moved it, second by Mr. Ford. Dr. Silva.
Thank you. And I would just like, I pull that off just to bring more information to the table. I'm not sure if we're all aware of the fact that many times lead poisoning has no symptoms. So please pass on the information that children exposed to paint, soil, sometimes even pottery, can be at risk for this, even without any symptoms. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So we have a motion, second. Any other thoughts, comment? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Allen. Auger.
Yes.
Barrero.
Yes.
Castro. Davis.
Yes.
Donahue. Ford. Froz. Unum.
Yes.
Heyman.
Yes.
Polshay.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Kazarick.
Yes.
Lash.
Yes.
Lewis. Molina.
Just stepped away.
Excuse me. Pollock.
Yes.
Shefflo.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Sterrett.
Yes.
Taylor.
Stepped away.
Vasquez.
Yes.
Winicki.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Next is number 13289. Dr. Silva?
Thank you. I'd like to move 289, recognizing October 6th through the 13th, 2013 as Mental Illness Awareness Week, please.
Okay, Dr. Silva moves, seconded by Ms. Barrera. If you'd like to present it.
Absolutely. Just wanted to single it out again. And in executive, I mentioned that we would have Public Health Accreditation Board site visits last week. I'd like to let you know that although they weren't able to give a lot, they can't, the people with which we were interviewing weren't able to give much feedback. I can tell in their body language that they were very pleased with our involvement in mental illness and how supportive we are of these things. So I'd like to, again, draw attention to the issue of mental illness. I'd like to thank Judge Braca. It is a truly innovative approach to have our head judge come and address us. And I'm very humbled because we're being given the kudos, but it's really all of you who are working in this that are doing the work. And let us not forget, first and foremost, the individuals who are suffering from mental illness. So with that, I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to proceed.
Thank you very much. Any other comments, questions? Ms. Winicki?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just following up on what Monica said, I'd like to thank our Chief Judge, Judy Braca, for taking the time and addressing this committee, and it was a great presentation, and thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Barb, and thank you, Chief Judge. Any other, Mr. Smith?
I would like to thank Judge Judy for finally getting to the root cause of the problem. Too long as the media has been focused on repeal of the Second Amendment to the answer of mental health problems. This addresses the problem.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any other comments, thoughts? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Barrero.
Yes.
Castro.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Donahue. Ford.
Yes.
Froz.
Yes.
Gilliam.
Yes.
Heyman.
Yes.
Polshay.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Kazarick.
Yes.
Lash.
Yes.
Lewis. Molina.
Yes.
Sheffro.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Sterrett.
Yes.
Taylor. Vasquez.
Yes.
Winicki.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Next on the agenda, I believe, is the discussion of the 2014 budget. If I'm not mistaken, Joe Onsick, our Chief Financial Officer, has a presentation to bring everybody up to date.
Good morning. I'll try to go through this as quickly as I can. I wanted to just display for you one last time just the number of opportunities that we've had to review the budget, to look at it in detail, to consider the different issues and items in detail that have been worked and considered into this budget process. It's been a transparent process through which we have built trust together as a team through elected officials, department heads, staff, and even the general public, to the extent that this has been done in public meetings. It's been a privilege to see the good faith effort that has been made by the various department heads and elected officials in truly putting together reasonable budget requests and voluntarily making cuts. There's been a number of meetings held and summaries and details presented to you, and we've also had private conversations and email exchanges to answer questions. So we've done all that we can to provide you with as much information as possible. And so we're here today to hopefully make what would be the final recommendations regarding the budget before it's placed on public display on October 25th. I just wanted to review the changes that have been made to the budget document since the last time it's been presented at the Committee of the Whole. We did include the $150,000 riverboat grant for the Forest Preserve. There was a slight correction on the expense side for $12,000 rent expense for the children's waiting room. We had the revenue in the general fund, but I had missed adding the rent expense on the children's waiting room side. I did incorporate into the version that was distributed to you the second half of the promised increase for the assistant state's attorneys, and then also the second half of the promised increase for the public defender's attorneys. And I'll have a little more detail in the next few slides. I'm pleased to announce to you that State's Attorney Joe McMahon has also voluntarily offered to remove his request for 2 additional assistant state's attorneys and 1 additional state's attorney administrative assistant in an effort to help defray the cost of the increases that we are incorporating into the budget for this year. And then there is also a recommended revision to the coroner's budget. The increase for the state's attorney totals $493,000 if you include benefits, and it's allocated across several funds. The general funds portion is $292,000. The insurance liability fund would be affected by about $95,000, but that's in turn funded through the contingency in the general fund. The special revenue funds of the drug prosecution fund would be affected by $32,000. The environmental prosecution fund is impacted by $18,000, and the child advocacy fund by $55,000. The increase for the public defender attorneys totals $285,000 for the salary portion alone, which would equate to $339,000 if you include the benefits, and that only affects the general fund. The 3 new hires that have been removed from the state's attorney's budget, I've already mentioned, that achieves a total savings of $241,000 if you include the benefits that would impact the general fund. For the coroner's final budget request that was submitted by the coroner's office, it did include funding for 2 additional deputy coroners that would enable 24/7 staffing with elimination of on-call and overtime. It included a $30,000 increase in funding for autopsy-related expenses, and there were some other minor increases, but it did eliminate the expense of the cost of x-rays by purchasing an x-ray machine using the coroner's special revenue funds. So the total budget that had been submitted by the coroner's office in the final version, the final request, was $110,000, or about 15% over last year's budget. What we are recommending for the coroner's budget, this recommendation comes from Chairman Lausen, Vice Chairman Fraz, Finance Committee Chairman Hoscheit, myself, and then also considering input from various other elected officials, was that there be no funding for additional staff, but rather we would ensure that there is funding to pay existing staff for being on call and for overtime for any actual hours worked when they are called. Of course, there's a standard increase in health and dental insurance that all departments received, but there are no other increases to any other line items. And with that, of course, there's always the option for the coroner to come during the year if there's demonstrated need within any particular area. For example, if autopsies are running higher than they had been budgeted, and certainly a request could be made at that time to be funded through the contingency. So the total increase that we're proposing or recommending for the coroner's office budget would result in a $60,000 increase over last year, or 8%, which is roughly half of what the increase was that was originally requested. And so we believe this represents a reasonable compromise. This is to just show you, this had been distributed to you ahead of time, so hopefully you had a chance to look at this. But this compares the two budgets side by side. On the left is the budget that was requested. The column that's highlighted in green, just about in the center of the screen there, is what was originally requested by the coroner. And then on the right is what we're recommending that the budget be for 2014. And as you can see, it's roughly half of the increase that's been requested. And just to point out the significant changes, it would be salary and wages, where we've removed the 2 additional staff that were requested for the budget. We've added the overtime lines, and we've added the line that's called employee per diem, which is the stipends for being paid for being on call. And then, of course, the health and the dental increases. So this change is what has been incorporated into the budget document that you've been given. This now would be a summary of what would be considered at this point the final draft of the budget. The only change that has occurred within the revenues would be on the general government line, the 57 million line item there. That has been adjusted slightly to account for the changes in IMRF and FICA related to the increases for the State's Attorney and Public Defender's Office. So that increased FICA and IMRF, so that shifted some of the revenue from the general fund to those funds. And then the highlighted items here would, of course, be the State's Attorney and Public Defender office amounts. Now they include the increases for the second half of their salary increases, as well as the removal of those 3 new hires that had been previously requested. The coroner's budget does reflect this new recommended amount of $817,000. And then the contingency that we have left now at this point is $1,125,000. And the contingency is about 1.4% of the total budget, which is less than the 2% that's recommended by our financial policies. But with board approval, you do have the ability to recommend or to accept this amount. This is almost exactly the amount that had been approved in last year's contingency. The difference is that we believe that nearly everything that we could anticipate has already been included in the budget, so we don't foresee any major changes other than, of course, relating to union negotiations or salary increases for non-union employees. So this contingency balance of $1,125,000 plus whatever savings in the healthcare premiums that may be realized once the new plan is approved is what must fund any salary and wage increases for 2014. And just to note for your reference, each 1% increase in union and non-union salaries, wages, excluding the State's Attorney and Public Defender's offices, since they've already had increases included, would equate to $687,000 if you include benefits. Of that amount, $530,000 impacts the contingency fund, and $157,000 would impact the special revenue funds. This is just a quick graphical representation of where the general fund budget has been in the last few years. So you can see for 2014, it's within the range that it has been running. It doesn't fall outside of that range. And then lastly, I wanted to show you what the final result of this budget has on what the tax levies would be. If we start at the bottom there in the column second to the left, second from the right, you'll see that there's a decrease of $995,000 from the Capital Improvement Debt Service Fund. So we've completely eliminated that levy, and instead we've moved it into the general fund at the top. So that accounts for most of the increase in the general fund levy. This increase then, it's going into the general fund, but part of this budget includes a transfer out of the general fund into the capital fund. So I just think it's important that you recognize by approving this budget, you are also approving that transfer out immediately into the capital fund, so where it will be reserved for capital needs only. And then there's also the adjustments to the insurance liability and the IMRF funds, which we've discussed in previous meetings. And then there's a slight increase for the Social Security Fund. And this is a graphical presentation courtesy Terry Hunt of the tax levies as well over the last few years. So today we are asking for a recommendation for the final budget to be put on public display. October 25th is the deadline for putting it on public display, after which there should not be any changes made, and then November 12th is when the county board would officially adopt the budget. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you very much, Joe. I'd like to thank you, Joe, and also John Hoscheit, all the board members who have been involved in the process, also the members of the advisory, the Finance Advisory Group, who have guided us through this process. There are about 4 or 5 general steps that I think that we as a board need to keep our minds on. We have a bunch of new folks here. You know, I'm very grateful for the experienced hands, but there are a lot of us who are new to the process. We have done our very best to keep it entirely open, but the first step is really to find where the perimeters are on this process and all the enormous detail that goes into this. Get our arms around the whole. So that's number one, and that's really been the main effort for this year. The second thing that we're going to go into, and I believe that it's part of the ongoing process of what the finance group and the analysts and all the members of the county team will do to dig deeper to control spending, using skills, the extra eyes that are now in place, because with it being open, I hope that we have more help in figuring out, well, how can we look at this differently to do it even better? I think that it is, as Joe pointed out, it should be significantly harder in the next year to tap into contingencies, because this is laid out with what our assumptions are. So the digging deeper is a part. It's the zero-based kind of process that we all desire for this. Number 3, and I appreciate Mr. Hoscheit's pressing forward, and it's very important, multi-year approximate budget. We don't have to have it perfect, but we need to know where we're going longer term in order to get there properly. The fourth piece, very important, and it's going to be determined by the people who have been elected by 500,000 folks. That's the capital plan. And then finally, a fifth component to this piece is an economic disaster contingency plan. There are people who are still serving on this board who knew what it was like after 2008 and going through that, and what we want to do is prepare for the worst, but hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. So those 5 areas. 3 things to remember before we turn it over to discussion. 3 things to remember about this budget. Number 1, The county property tax levy remains frozen for the 3rd straight year. Number 2, the property tax levy is frozen again. Number 3, the property tax levy is frozen again. Spending is so important. And by the way, that is consistent, and with gratitude, this is consistent with the good example that's been provided by your work on the Kane County Forest Preserve. The spending is very important, but the impact that has the greatest effect on our constituents is when they get their tax bill and how much does county government, the Forest Preserve, and indirectly the Fox Valley Park District through appointments that we make through this process that are coming up. That really is the levy, the impact on folks. People are saying, you know, we've elected board members, spend what we give you as you think best, but just don't ask me for more, is what people say when you go to the doors. Is that right, Brian? I mean, that's what we get when we go to the doors in our neighborhood. Don't make my financial life any harder is the key to what people are saying. And Deb, I know that you as a discipline go, you know, all 4 years. So with those general thoughts, let's go to questions and comments. Who'd like to lead out? Ms. Lesh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm sorry if I missed something, but I'd like to go back to the proposed slide if you could. Seeing the dramatic increase of the 171% on the county board, could you give more of a detailed explanation of why such the increase?
Is it on? Oops.
Yeah, that one's.
That was on the revenue, I think that's the revenue line that was increased by.
Right, that is the revenue line, and that amount would be composed of the riverboat grant that was approved, and also a grant that would be expected to fund community outreach. So it's additional revenue from those 2 sources.
What grant is funding the community outreach, do we know? Specific grant for that?
2. One is the riverboat grant. Number 2 is we're applying to what is called Citizen Invest, which they put out for worthy causes, public funding where people can contribute to good causes, and we're going to apply into that process. There's a firm that does that in the public sector, and we're going through an innovative way of paying for expenses so that it doesn't come out of the property taxpayers' pockets.
Okay. And what if that grant's not approved then?
I'll have to make other provisions.
Right. Okay. And also to keep in mind that the expense side for the community outreach program is deliberately placed in the contingency line item, so it would require approval for it to be transferred out and actually allocated to be used. So.
Next, Mr. Hoshite.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a few comments just from my perspective as Chairman of Finance Committee. I'd first like to thank Mr. Onzik. This is his first year through the process, and I have to say that the budget process has been more open than it had been in prior years, and quite frankly, the board members have been much more interested and paid more attention to detail, and Mr. Onzik's done a great job of providing the information and the detail for the presentation so we can understand it. Now, through this process, all the board members haven't agreed totally with how we've, what the decision-making is or how we formulated the budget, but it's been a real pleasure to have the information available so you can understand the issues. I do want to make a couple comments based on what the chairman had said and also based on the presentation this morning. First of all, I think the most important task for us this next year is to get a multi-year budget in place, because this year we were able to balance the budget with the benefit of some additional revenues that we hadn't had in prior years. Sales taxes have increased, income taxes have increased, and I don't think we can plan on that long term. And so the important thing for us as a board is to know, to establish priorities and then fund those priorities first, This year, we're going to have the benefit of having the union contracts resolved, hopefully sooner rather than later. And that's going to give us a kind of a roadmap to deal with a multi-year commitment for our wage component of our budget. Just a couple other points I wanted to touch on. I know there was discussion about the coroner's budget this morning. The one item I think that was left out in the recommended item, the significant component was the issue of autopsies, and I think that's an issue that's a variable cost based on discretion, but some based on just actual statistics. And it's my understanding that that issue can be discussed at the committee level in detail, and then if there's issues that have to come back, we'll deal with them at finance if there's contingency requests or the like there. So although this budget is proposed to be a final budget, we do have the contingency fund. Next year, we're going to have to rely on that contingency fund to deal with any adjustments that we have based on the union discussions and negotiations there. So I'm comfortable moving forward with the budget as proposed right now, with the caveat that it's critical that we focus this next year on getting a multi-year plan in place, because it's going to point out where we're going to have shortfalls and where we need to make some tough decisions. And with that, Mr. Chairman, if it's appropriate, I would move that we approve the budget as presented.
Okay, moved by Mr. Hochheit. Is there a second? Mr. Ford. Further discussion? Mr. Lewis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe, could we get back to the spending? There's a graph. I think it's 2009, 10, 11, 12, whatever. There you go. Okay. Now, this graph illustrates a 2012 pretty dramatic increase. Looks like from 75 million to 84 million or whatever. It's important for this board to appreciate that the 2012 spending is at that level because we're including our contribution to the IMRF in there. We're including our contribution towards reducing debt in our spending, and we're including a contribution towards contract settlement wages for 2013, 2014, 2015. That spending essentially was spending basically reducing debt and reducing future expenditures. So despite the fact it's shown as spending, but the reality is that during 2012 our spending was right in the area of about $75 million, $76 million. My point with this budget, and I've consistently talked about it, every budget opportunity, is that our spending is increasing at a pretty alarming rate to me. In the last couple of years, it's gone up by about $8 million. And that represents additional tax burden at some point for Kane County citizens. We have found ways to fund that for this year, primarily because of increased revenues through tax, property tax, not property tax, but sales tax and income tax. And next year, we're reducing a number of funds, but appreciate that we're putting $80 million of spending on the board that we're going to have to deal with in the future. And I was here, I've been here, and trust me, that taking that spending line from $85 million down to $75 million, that was very, very difficult to accomplish that. And so I'm concerned. I think it's a dramatic increase too quickly, but we'll see what the public says. Because it goes on display in another couple of weeks. Thank you,
Mr. Lewis. Mr. Smith?
Mr. Ronzak, Joe, prior to you coming to Kane County, you were the finance director for large institutions. Based on your background and experience, is this a good budget, or are we headed for financial disaster?
Wow. No, this is a good budget. in my opinion, my perspective, this is not leading us into financial disaster. I have not been part of any financial disasters in my past. If anything, I've been part of heading them off. So I do not see this as a problem. I mean, certainly I think the concerns that are out there, I know are valid concerns as to what do we do in the future, and we will be faced with challenges if we're going to continue to hold the property tax levy flat and our expenses continue to rise, whether it's through salary increases, health care increases, just the general, cost. We do need to find other sources of revenue and make cuts as necessary.
It's kind of the answer I hope for.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Other thoughts? Mr. Vasquez?
This question, Mr. Chairman, thank you, is for Joe. The 112 Special Reserve Fund, you're showing on the sheet you passed out as a reduction of 33%, and just kind of curious as to why.
That special reserve fund was the $1.8 million that was set aside at the end of 2012. So it started out as $1.8 million, and the intention at that time was to release $900,000 in year 2013, which we did, and the purpose was to help lessen the impact of the arbitration awards that came in at the end of 2012. So we chose to lessen the impact on 2013 by taking $900,000 out. And then over the next 2 years, we'll take out in 2014 $600,000, and then in 2015 $300,000. So that kind of gives us time to phase in the impact of that arbitration award.
So you're doing that based on what you might find out through arbitration, and you're setting aside 1% on the union contracts already without having negotiated them. How do you do that? Why would you recommend a 1% reserve when you don't know what liability is going to be?
Well, that is a similar amount that was set aside last year. We don't know what the union negotiations will yield and what the arbitration award would be. And you're correct in that. If it's more than what is provided for by this contingency, we will have to, take action to decide how we're going to fund it. This budget is the result of limited resources and revenues, and we do have limitations, and that is one of them.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Vasquez. Ms. Wonicky?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to talk real briefly about the coroner's budget. And the coroner's department has been neglected for many, many years, and our new coroner was elected at large from the voters of Kane County, so I can very much understand where he wanted to come in and correct right all the wrong that's been in the past in the coroner's office. So I want to compliment our new coroner and our chairman, and absolutely Joe, all three of you being new in your positions in the county, and all three of you have been very receptive and willing to work together to try to achieve what I guess our goal is, and that is to keep the levy flat. So I want to just thank all of you.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Wonicky. I'd also like to point out that you brought forward one of the, what I thought was one of the very best proposals of how to figure out what would be most reasonable compromise. I wanted to thank the members of the Finance Advisory Group, the folks, Joe Onsick, also Erica, the multiple meetings that took place, Deb Allen and Sue Sterrett, who practiced shuttle, diplomacy of finding, trying to identify, well, where's common ground so that we can come out. And your idea, Ms. Wonicky, of over the longer term solving all the things that we see, that's the kind of approach that we need to take across the entire budget. So, there were board members like Brian Pollock who came forward with what I thought was excellent work on the very guts of assignments and what would then make that budget. So I just wanted to thank everybody for the extraordinary efforts that board members have made through the process. Ms. Wodnicki.
I'm sorry, we are so fortunate to have Commissioner Holscheit as our finance chair.
Absolutely.
He's really brought it all together, so thank you, John.
Thank you. Next thought? Comment? Mr. Fraz.
Everybody that needs to be thanked, so I'd like to echo all that, but I would like to thank all those people mentioned for getting this done in a timely manner. I've been sitting here with snow on the ground when I saw the final budget and had my first opportunity for input. So I appreciate the openness and the inclusion part of it. And again, I'd like to echo thanking John for his many years of experience on finance and guiding us through this.
Thank you. Ms. Gillum?
So the proposal for the coroner's budget, that was put together by the finance group, right?
It was put together by Chairman Lawson, Vice Chair Drew Faz, the Chairman of the Finance Committee, John Holscheit, myself, and this is also the result of the many meetings we had, with the input we've received from a variety of people, including the coroner, just digesting all of that information and coming up with this recommendation then.
My question then would be, is the coroner comfortable with this presentation?
We did not reach an agreement on this budget where, everybody sat down and said, well, this is, final, we all agree. Unfortunately, in the end, the difference between, I think if you'll put up the slide, the 886 and where it was, Mr. Holscheit?
I think from my perspective on that issue, I think we're in agreement is at least, and I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but my understanding of the discussion that went back and forth, and this came to a head yesterday in a meeting we had yesterday morning, was that on the wage side, there was agreement. The one issue it was the issue that I mentioned before was the autopsy expense, and that's something that needs further study, and I think that can be addressed at the committee and can be brought back for further discussion if there's an appropriate adjustment. So with that understanding, I think that's how we reach that consensus.
Okay.
Next thought, comment? Mr. Shefflow?
Thank you. I'm going to support this budget. I had two primary concerns about it. One is originally there were 10 or 12 new employees next year. So we've gone from a hiring freeze to increasing the staff by about 1%. With these recent changes, we're down to a five-person increase, 5 or 7, depending on if you include the Kane County Connected. So I think that's closer to where we need to be. And then the spending issue, I agree with Mr. Lewis. I think that's the issue that we have to address, is to stay where we are. We can't stay on that trajectory that from last year to this year. So I'm not as concerned about the multi-year budget as much as what is next year's budget going to be. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Shefflow. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Mr. Davis?
Mr. Holscheit mentioned it, and I do think the process has been improved, and I mentioned it to the chairman, but there's a couple of fundamental things here that do really concern me. We've talked frozen levy, and yet as I look at this levy sheet, to get there, we reduced capital improvement debt service, we reduced IMRF contribution. We did these things while we increased the general fund levy by $1.5 million. So that I find very, that's kind of alarming, that we're shifting these so that the net result is flat, but we didn't freeze everything. And some of these are are obligations that will come back to us, that we're going to see again. So multi-year really is going to be important. The sheriff's budget shows a little over $1 million increase, but I'm not certain from looking at this whether that includes the shooting range expense. Mr. Anzik, can you?
Well, here, why don't we lay out all the concerns that you have, and then we'll go back and address each one, because on the first one, there's maybe a misunderstanding on your part about what's occurring on the capital and the IMRF. But we can go back and address them. If you'll list out the concerns that you have, and then we'll address them one at a time.
I think I've hit on the basis of it, which is that we're talking frozen levy, but we're spending more money.
Okay, thank you.
I find that alarming.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Onsick, in several of the other meetings where we've covered the advantage of what's occurring on the capital levy to save $110,000, and then the IMRF, will you lay out what the actual impact of those are? I mean, it's a frozen levy, and it's a legitimately frozen levy, and there's sense behind each one of those moves. Can you outline the sense?
Well, starting with the capital debt service levy, what I've proposed to do would be, rather than issue a $1 million bond or however many millions we'd like to issue for capital improvements, rather than issue bonds and then in turn needing to pay like $110,000. If we're talking about a $1 million bond, we're talking about $110,000 in bond issue expense and interest expense that we would have to incur. Whereas if we not do that and instead increase the general fund levy by $1 million, we can use that entire $1 million for capital and save that $110,000 that we'd otherwise be spending in interest and bond issue costs. So it's to save the taxpayers $110,000 is why I'm proposing to do that. And as I hope is clear, is that $1 million is then being transferred immediately out as part of this budget into capital. So it's not like we're increasing general fund spending by $1 million and maybe use it for capital. We are definitely going to be using it for capital as part of this budget. So that would be how I would answer that part of the question. Regarding IMRF, for whatever reasons, I can't really speculate as to how it's happened, but over the past several years from IMRF and FICA, there has been more levied than was needed for those funds. And by what I mean by what was needed, I mean by our required payments. IMRF in particular, the required payment does include 24% of that payment is going to be applied to the unfunded liability. So by making our required payments, we are bringing down the unfunded liability. For last year, it was reduced by $1.4 million as a result. But in the meantime, because we've been accumulating more dollars in the IMRF fund that was needed, I mean, that balance has been growing. And it can only be used for IMRF, and one of my recommendations in the near future will be to take a portion of that and actually pay it to IMRF so that we can have that additional amount applied to the unfunded liability. But we're in no way jeopardizing the IMRF fund by adjusting it to budget exactly what we need to be paying out.
So on the IMRF, not only are we paying every penny of the obligation that we have, but we're strengthening our position by the $1.4 million and adjusting, fine-tuning the calculations of what's required and then what's paid. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then on the sheriff's budget, I think the question was, does that include the range, or is the range over in the capital, in some type of capital budget?
The qualifying range is part of the capital budget, and that was presented at the Committee of the Whole. So there's $5.4 million of capital expenditures included in this budget, and the qualifying range is one of the items that were detailed out as part of that budget.
Okay, thank you very much. Other questions before we come back to Ms. Wonicky and Mr. Frost? Mr. Kenyon.
I'm wondering if we could ask the coroner his opinion of this recommended compromise that's been given to him.
I think that rather than doing, we've had, I think this is either the 11th or 12th part of the process. I don't think that we should go into department and agency, elected official agency, give and take debates at this point. If a person wants to vote against the budget because of concerns in this area, I think that they should do that. But I think that we need to funnel work toward an end and then discuss it with your indulgence.
This is a bit unusual. It was a last-minute thing, and he didn't accept it. It was handed to him. And I remember in the past when we've tried to work with department heads, they've had a kind of a say-so. Mm-hmm. They're elected to run that office, I believe. And I understand what he wants, I understand what you want, but I wonder if he can make your solution work.
Okay. I respect the desire to have things on top of the table, but again, this is one of the reasons why we work as many times and as many different places and as many different opportunities to come to a conclusion on the thing. But Mr. Kenyon, I appreciate the flow of information, and if there's anyone else who has that, concern, is there anyone else who would like to hear the coroner's reaction to Mike's question? Yeah. Okay. Rob, would you come up, please? And I guess is your specific question, can you make this work within the budget that's allocated by the board?
That's one of my questions, yes.
Okay.
So the question is, can I make it work within though it's been allocated? The answer to that is no. I look at the budget as neither reasonable nor a compromise because it does not reflect anything to do with the autopsies, and we're already several $1,000 over our autopsy budget this year. So this budget represents last year's autopsy, which was 103. This year we're already on target to do about 130 autopsies. So if it's a matter of having to come back for a resolution, I can guarantee you that that's going to happen. The 817 also represents what we have to fund federally as a federal mandate. So that, it really wasn't a compromise. It's really what we have to do. So, I've spent several hours putting together a presentation, several tens and hundreds of hours between myself and my staff justifying this. So, out of all due respect, I appreciate all the hard work that everybody's done. And I think it's important that we bring this back to committee so that I can, get this information out there. This would be the fifth time I think it's the fifth time that I've tried to present this budget in a reasonable manner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Russell. Thank you. Any other questions about the budget as a whole? Mr. Pollack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regarding spending, a couple people have raised this. I think we'd all love to be able to cut a little piece off spending and go back to taxpayers and lower the levy. Unfortunately, this is the hand we've been dealt. We have to deal with what we have. Everyone's asking for things. It's something I believe Chairman Hochheit has raised in doing a multi-year budget. I think it's important. I raise this because I appreciate the fact that we're not over-levying people. The cut for the IMRF, the $276,000 cut, prior boards have obviously levied more money than necessary. The fact that we can go back to taxpayers and say, we're not asking you for the amount we ask for every year, and we're saving you $276,000 is a goodwill gesture. It's a way of saying that we're listening and we've made a difference. My concern, and I hope we do a multi-year budget, is so we don't run into a point where we're digging into those reserves. It's not affecting us this year. It seems like a reasonable solution for this year. But we don't want to get to the point. Chairman Lawson has made clear to us that paying our IMRF allocation is important, and we're going to do it. It's going up every year, so we have to make sure that this year it's okay. We can handle this. It appears we're not missing on any payments. We're still well funded in terms of reserves, but we need to keep this in mind in the future, and we should have a multi-year budget so we understand that we're not going to run into any problems on the line.
Thank you, Mr. Pollack. Let's see, now we're going into, let's first go to people who are speaking for the first time. And, you know, we could go, we could discuss this for a long, long time. If there's a crucial thing that must be said, then, you know, I would invite you to come a second time. But like Ms. Allen, I don't think that you've made an initial comment on the budget.
No. What I wanted to say was I think there are a lot of fresh eyes, not only new people coming on board, but also more opportunity to participate. And I'm grateful for the fresh eyes because I think one of the things that we did here was there were monies sitting around that could be used purposefully. In the past, we took out a capital plan bond so that we could do the roofs and the parking lots and the tuck pointing and all that kind of thing. And this year, we're going to try and do it in-house, as Mr. Onzik said, so that we don't have to pay the cost to issue a bond and the interest on the bond. We're using our own money in a useful, productive way. And I think that that's I admit that we have to look at that every year because we have to make sure that we're not cutting too deeply, but using our own money for good purposes, I think, is a smart thing. Think of the money that we talked about we'd have to put into the judicial technology umbrella, and with a little luck, if RTA sales tax keeps coming in, we'll be able to fund that whole project in-house without having to go out for bond and ask people to help pay for it. So I'm grateful for those innovative lookings around and trying to figure out where we can use our money best. And I appreciate that we have a brand new coroner who is saying, here's how I think this office should be run. There's a notorious lack of record keeping that he is fixing, and so that he'll have better statistics to use in the future. And I think that that kind of working towards the best end is a good faith effort that we've all put into this, and I'm very grateful for the fresh eyes and the enthusiasm. I think I'll just stop there.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Allen. Any other initial comments? Ms. Gillum,
I'm sorry.
second? Fine.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add that I went to several local financial directors, municipality financial directors, to ask them, after I met with Mr. Onzik, it was a great meeting, to discuss just general policy about the IMRF changes, the debt service, things like that. And because one of the questions that came up was the concern about balances declining and things like that. And I actually got two recommendations that said that having overfunding the IMF is really a bad idea. That adjustment, for those of you who don't feel comfortable with that, I didn't at first as well, and I am comfortable with that now, knowing that we're going to continue to make those IMF payments and not continue to increase that fund balance. So I just wanted to add that.
Okay. I think that if there's no objection, I think I'll call the question, unless there's any strong need for, okay. That's the case, clerk will call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Yes. Barrow.
Yes.
Castro.
Yes.
Excuse me. Davis. No. Donovan. Yes. Ford. Yes. Froz.
Yes.
Gillen.
Yes.
Heyman.
Yes.
Boscheit.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Kuzarek.
Yes.
Lash.
Yes.
Lewis.
No.
Molina.
Yes.
Pollock.
Yes.
Sheffro.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Sterrett.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Vasquez.
Yes.
Winnicki.
Yes.
Passes 22-2.
Okay, the motion and second passes 22-2. Thank you very much for all the effort and all the thought that's gone in on all sides of the budget. Next on the agenda is a Resolution 13304, and while Ellen is passing out the resolution, I'd like to ask Barb Jeffers if she'd come forward and let us know what your recommendation has been, or what your recommendation is for the Animal Control Administrator. Oh, here, Barb, why don't you ask, let's see, can someone help you with that? And then you'll go ahead and make your, thanks, Mark. Thank you, Sue. Okay, I believe what's being distributed are two things. Resolution number 13304, number 2, Ms. Jeffers' recommendation letter on what she's going to present. Okay, Ms. Jeffers.
Good morning, Chairman and County Board members. Before I give you my recommendation, I would like to give you a little background information so I can put this in context. In the spring of 2012, the then Animal Control Administrator came before the board and asked for deferment of a debt loan payment to the county because Animal Control could not make that deferred payment of $153,000. The board said come back in November. I think she asked for a 2-year deferment. Then in the end of May of 2012, that Animal Control Administrator abruptly resigned, leaving that position vacant. The next month, or approximately a week later, I was appointed interim Executive Director of the Health Department, which had the Animal Control Department under its responsibilities. So at that point, when I resumed the role of the Executive Director of the Health Department being interim, I also assumed the role of Animal Control Administrator because there was a vacancy. Immediately upon taking the responsibility of animal control, I was curious as to why the deferment was being made. So with the assistance of my financial manager, we did a financial analysis of the Animal Control Department's finances and discovered that they had been trending down for the last 5 years. So as a result of that, I recognized why there was a recommendation to defer the payment. Animal Control, for those of you who are not aware, Animal Control is a self-sustaining department that receives no general fund nor grants. Its primary revenue source is registration and tags, in addition to other services that they provide. So the county board does not provide any financial funding for this department. It is independent of any revenue streams within the department. So if they don't generate the revenue, they can't pay their expenses. So in November of 2012, I came before the board and did not have the whole payment deferred, but only portions of the payment. The payment is broken down into 2 funding streams, one capital and the other general revenue. Well, being conscious of the general revenue funding, I chose to get the capital fund deferred, which is $93,000. From June of 2012 to today, Animal Control has had no administrator. Well, knowing what I know financially, there was no way Animal Control could sustain itself without bringing in revenue. So in January of 2013, Robert Ciceda was placed at the Animal Control as the billing manager. Until that point, he has been serving as the billing manager. And before I get to that, I also would like to share with you Sheila McCraven and myself, the Executive Director of the Office of Human Resources, interviewed 3 candidates for this position. And Robert Ciceda was the chosen one. But before I get to that, I'd like to share with you what I see personally as what competent animal control administrators the qualities they should have. First and foremost, they should have the ability to make animal control financial stable. If the person in that role cannot sustain the financial situation and increase it, animal control may have to close its doors, minimally do reduction in staff or some other expenses. As I stated earlier, currently they do not receive any funding from the county. So therefore, if we don't financially stabilize that department, it would not sustain itself. So the person that I look for should be able to do financial sustainability. The second thing I'll look for in the position is a person who has leadership skills to have a vision to change the way that department operates. That department really must come above the fray and once again be in light of Kane County that we know is a department that really serves its community. And up until today, there have been some things that really haven't been addressed properly. So the person has to have the leadership ability to make those changes and have a better vision. And lastly, that individual really must have a commitment to our community in Kane County to communicate not only with just our residents, but with our veterinarian community, to work closely with them because they too are our constituents. So that's what I look for in an animal control administrator. So having said that, I have distributed to you my recommendation for Robert Cesada. And I'd like to share with you what has happened since January up until to date of his performance. As you recognize, he has been serving in the capacity of the billing manager. And in that capacity, he has consistently, and I demonstrate that in my public health committee each month with a chart, he has consistently increased monthly revenues as compared to the year before. And to date, animal control has collected $624,197 as compared to the previous year to date of $459,284 in registration and tag sales, which has resulted in an increase of $164,913, which represents a 36% increase. Our overall total revenue increase today is 28% or $146,735. The year-to-date total expenses have decreased, so he has had an opportunity to increase the revenue and decrease our expenses by 11% or $67,240,000. He instituted many processes. I didn't list them all, but I'd like to share a few that truly has supported the revenue generation. Animal control in previous years would send out postcards to the community to request, to notify you that your registration was either coming up or you were late. Well, that was a cost to the county because of postage. For a nominal fee of 5,000 calls for $100 or less than $100, we instituted robocalls where the community received a call to either notify them that your registration was either overdue or was coming due, which generated in $36,000 of delinquent tags. We had a backlog of data entry, so as a result of catching up on the data entry, we collected $16,000 in past due registrations and tags. There was a huge campaign in looking at how do we get our dogs out for adoptions and rescues. So Robert has participated in 7 parades throughout the county, which today has not happened. So with that awareness to the community, we have had pet adoptions as a result of that visibility and marketing. As I stated earlier, our data entry system has been streamlined. If many of you who were here in previous years, there was approximately $30,000, I suppose, spent prior to my time, spent on hiring temps to catch up on the records, and we were able to do this without a temp agency, so which is an additional savings. We are definitely now on social media with Twitter and Facebook, once again raising the awareness to our community, not only on pet adoptions, but some valuable educational information on pet ownership. Prior to this, we would wait on the vets to send us our registration and tags, and now we institute a regular communication, line of communications to the 100-plus vets in our community who send us our payment on time due to the increased communication. The other thing that didn't happen is there are a variety of organizations that offer low-cost clinics throughout the county, and particularly in the southern part of the county. Well, Robert was able to work with Just Animals to not only provide those low-cost clinics in the southern part of the county, but now we're up in the northern part of the county, which gives residents who may not be able to get down to the southern part of the county an opportunity to get low-cost rabies clinics to the northern part of the city. And he was also part of us looking at trying to be better stewards to our citizens and lowering the rates in the municipalities. So, as I stated before, Sheila McCraven and I interviewed 3 candidates, and once the interview process was over, she and I collectively agreed, based on my criteria of financial stability, leadership, and a commitment to the community, Robert Seseda was the selected candidate based on that criteria. So from where I sit, he has consistently demonstrated that he's a dedicated and committed individual and should be given the opportunity to continue to grow and expand the role of animal control administrator. And I would support him in seeing that animal control continues to become the place that we all can be proud of in animal control in Kane County.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jeffers. So I'm appointing Rob Seseda upon Director Jeffers' recommendation and Sheila McCraven's support. May I have a motion to confirm that? Ms. Sterrett, second. Mr. Fraz. Any comments, questions? Ms. Allen?
There were a number of us who sat on a committee to interview at the time we talked about paying more to have an administrator/veterinarian. And that taught me some things that I didn't know before. We didn't select any of the candidates, largely, I think, because we felt they lacked administrative skills. Good vets, missing the administration. But when we were interviewing those people, we found people who had to do fundraising before. And so that was one of the things that was sort of promising, that there are innovative ways to make more money to benefit more animals. I guess that what I was hoping for was that we would continue that process where we would have interviews by a committee. Though I appreciate you're following a procedure of having Sheila and Barb interview. In the person who runs animal control, I was hoping for a grand scheme, one that would include a league of volunteers who would be allowed to come in to walk the animals, socialize the cats, and do some fundraising so that we could continue to do low-cost rabies and low-cost spay-neuter programs. I was hoping that we would have some professionals or interested parties in a committee who would be looking at the whole county holistically. For instance, that a breeder would be sitting on a committee along with a vet, along with a citizen, along with somebody who wanted to institute a feral cat program, so that we would always be looking at what next could we do to make our program be a good one for the county, how we would service those needs. So I guess as we go into a new administrator, I'm grateful for raised funding and for the outreach. I guess I would like to see the vision to make it the best program that we can have, so that we look into the future to get as many animals adopted and euthanize as few as possible and try and make the animal situation in the county as good as it can be.
Thank you very much, Ms. Allen. Let's see, animal control reports into public health, and I would think that those very valid recommendations could be considered within the work that the Public Health Committee does as far as guiding all these forward. So thank you very much. Mr. Kenyon?
This is an impressive list of recommendations. I'm calling on my memory, but I don't remember people in the past receiving such an endorsement. And I remember being disappointed in some of the past appointees. Really, really disappointed. And I don't have any problem with our two professionals doing the interviewing. I think that Barb and Sheila are the most professional people to do that, and maybe we don't want to make things too complicated, because she's got to work with them, and whoever she endorses, she will have to make sure works. But I want to thank you for this impressive list.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other questions, comments? Mr. Hoshait?
A procedural question. In light of Ms. Allen's comments, did this come as a recommendation from the Health Committee, or was this discussed at the Health Committee?
This appointment?
Yes.
No, the appointment comes through the chairman by statute. Other? Mr. Donahue?
Yeah, I've given this a lot of thought and had actually quite a bit of time to think about this. And, you know, the fact of the matter is my position hasn't changed since we were in executive session discussing this 9 months ago. And I won't get in and reiterate the detail, but I'm not going to support the appointment.
Thank you, Mr. Donahue. Other questions, comments? Ms. Auger.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Barb, I had a question. I noticed that Mr. Saucedo supposedly increased registration and tag sales, but what percentage of that is dedicated to just the increased price of the tags?
I don't have that in front of me, but it's a small increase because the majority of our animals are altered, neutered, or spayed. Unfortunately, we thought we would get a better return on investment as a result of that, but we really have not seen that, but I can provide that with you specifically. The increase really came from, to be quite frankly, an aggressive assault on going after delinquent tags. Robert discovered that during his assessment that we had a significant number of residents who were totally unaware that they had to register their pets in Kane County, especially those who went to low-cost clinics. They just made the assumption, because every county is different. So you go from county to county what the registration is or isn't, and some veterinarians and low-cost clinics offer those tags and registrations and others don't. Most offer the information, but as we know, a lot of people don't read all the literature that they are given when they go see the vets. You know, it's just a fact. And so a lot of this was a discovery that we know we can't recoup again, but we discovered there was a significant amount of individuals who were totally unaware that their pets needed to be registered. So this was a combination of efforts that went into getting this additional revenue, and it was minimally impacted by the differential of the spay and neuter program increase.
Thanks, Barb.
Thanks. I did have one other comment. I do agree with Deb Allen. I was on the initial animal task force, task force, and we were really looking into having a vet that's an administrator and a vet, and I really liked that concept. So for that reason, I have to vote against this, although Mr. Saucedo has a...
Yes.
Can I address that, please? One of the things that I did in my short tenure here was assess the relevance of a vet versus an animal control administrator. To have a vet, which means we would expand our clinical care, and you would have to pay for that. we are not currently set up to do clinical care in the shelter. That would cost another, definitely capital project to set up exam rooms, operating rooms, anesthesiology, and all the things that go with that. A vet's practice is quite similar to a medical practice because you are dealing with putting dogs under and doing surgery and those kinds of things. And when we looked at the statute, that's not the role of animal control, is to do clinical care. That should be left to the veterinarians. And really, we're there to keep rabies down in the population of cats and dogs in the county. So it was with that. And since it's a self-generating, revenue-generating operations, the most important thing I felt was a person who could come in and have leadership and good administration skills.
Thank you. Ms. Jeffers, there was a letter that came into your file from the contracted veterinarian, I think it's Dr. Davis.
Yes.
Sent in, and that letter was in support of Mr. Sauceda's candidacy, wasn't it?
Correct. Dr. Jane Davis is our contracted veterinarian that comes in and works with our injured and makes referrals, and she has recommended.
Good. Okay. Ms. Allen?
Can I ask, we had posted this job offering a long time ago. The people that you interviewed, were they the ones who were still left over, who were still interested in the job from that posting?
Well, the people we interviewed, we posted a couple of months ago and collected, so they were the ones as a result of that last posting.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Castro?
I'm hearing what Deb has to say, and I'm also hearing what John had to say. I remember the discussion about the animal control administrator, and it was brought. It was the purview of the chairman who brought it forward to public health and let public health have a say. I have a small concern that public health really didn't get a chance to interview the candidate, talk to the candidate, and have some of their concerns addressed if they have any. So I'm more concerned that since this is a person that's going to work directly with the chairman of public health and the committee, that they should have at least had an opportunity to vet the candidate, so I won't be supporting this.
Ms. Sterrett?
Yes, hi. I'm actually on public health. I'm vice chair, and I've actually went there myself with Ms. Jeffers and also met with Mr. Robert Sauceda, and actually was able to ask a lot of questions, things that were important to me to know whether or not he would be doing his job or not. All of the information that I was given was that he was doing his job, that he was bringing in income that had not been there before. The other thing was I then did take a full tour of the entire facility as well, and that was given by someone else. And the entire time the person said to me, basically they were singing his praises, basically saying, it's changed so much since he's been in here. The increase in the money has been great, and this was totally unsolicited. This was not from them at all. And this was just a separate person who actually we were talking about, what their educational background was in veterinary sciences and that type of thing. And they were expressing to me that they thought that it was a good fit. That was what was expressed to me when I was actually there on my own, and actually Barb and Robert Sauceda were there, but they were not with me at the time. They were actually in the front section, and I was taking a personal tour to see what needed to be done and what he had projected needed to be done as well with the animals and with the facilities as well.
Thank you, Ms. Sterrett. Dr. Silva, as the chairman of the Public Health Committee, if you would like to make any comment, you'd be welcome to. In the meantime, though, I'm going to recognize Ms. Molina.
Mr. Chair, I can't help but feel this wasn't a completely just process, just because I feel the candidate already had a leg up in the application process because he was pretty much doing the job before he was appointed for the job. I have a little hesitancy. I know I sit on the health committee. This wasn't vetted by the health committee. I'd like to kind of just review my own thoughts and maybe bring it up in 30 days before I can agree to it. So at this point, if I would move to table this for 30 days.
Okay, we have a motion to table by Ms. Molina. Do we have a second? Mr. Vasquez, would the clerk call the roll?
Allen?
Aye.
Yes.
Barrett?
Yes.
Castro?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Donahue? Yes. Ford?
No.
Raj?
No.
Gill?
No.
Heyman?
No.
Boucher? Yes. Kenyon?
Yes.
Kazarick?
No.
Leish?
Yes.
Lewis?
No.
Molina?
Yes.
Pollock?
No.
No.
Jeffro? Silva?
In deference to my colleagues who feel that they need more time, although I don't feel this needs to be tabled, I will vote yes.
Smith?
No.
Sterrett?
No.
Taylor?
Yes.
Vasquez?
Yes.
Radecki?
No.
It is the will of the board that this be tabled for 30 days. So we'll go through and we'll have our questions all answered and postpone this for a month. We have two speakers on non-agenda items. Mr. Timothy McCallum, I believe Geneva on the maintenance of lot at LEA and Kesslinger, and enforcement of weed policy for railroad property at Kesslinger. Mr. McCallum, will 3 or 4 minutes be okay?
Fine.
And thank you very much for your patience.
Sure, no problem. I'd like to start off with apologizing because I don't think this is the proper forum for this, but it's after 25 years of trying to deal with the agencies in Kane County that are responsible for these issues and not getting any response that I'm here today. So to start off with, we have a lot at the front of the subdivision. I'll give you a little history on it. In the 80s, 2 lawyers from St. Charles, Blood and Booze, developed Eliza Geneva near Kesslinger and Peck, about 3 miles from here. And the subdivision has 32 lots ranging from 1.5 acres to 2.5 acres. One of the lots at the entrance of our subdivision was too wet to build on, and indeed there's culverts running under Kesslinger that drain a lot of water from the north during heavy rains. And water sits in this lot from time to time. The developer somehow managed to transfer this property to the Kane County Forest Preserve District, who designated it as a park. The transfer released the developer from any responsibility to maintain the property. For a few years, the Township Highway Department had 2 employees which seemed to care about the appearance of the township, and they routinely mowed the property. But about 20 years ago, they retired. One of them actually passed on, and nobody essentially has maintained the lot since. The lot has essentially been abandoned by the Forest Preserve District. It's allowed to become overgrown with weeds and wild willow. And then when Mill Creek subdivision was developed, Kent Chodine promised at the zoning hearings that he would incorporate the lot into the development plans. And of course, these plans were approved by the county and approved by the township. But everybody seemed to forget all those promises. And again, the lot was left abandoned. Traffic on Kesslinger has increased significantly over the years with the development of Mill Creek. The City of Geneva's bus facility is directly across the street from this lot, the school bus facility. We have the water treatment plant, the animal shelter, and the courthouse is nearby, and of course traffic from Delnor Hospital and Mill Creek School and the new LaFox train station have all contributed to heavy traffic. Today that lot is so overgrown and it's so hazardous with the willow growing there close to the edge of Kesslinger that when you pull up to the stop sign at Leah Drive to enter Kesslinger, you cannot really see from the stop sign to the west. And you have to edge out into Kesslinger traffic in order to be able to see to the west. That's the lack of maintenance has created this by the Forest Preserve District has created this hazard. And again, I say, year after year, I've called the Forest Preserve District. Some years they even denied that they owned the property. But recently I did get a response from the Kane County Forest Preserve District. They said this fall something would happen. Of course, fall's here and nothing's happened. And maybe they'll keep to their word. Fall's still got a little ways to run. Maybe they'll keep to the word and mow it. But honestly, after 25 years of hearing promises, I don't have a lot of faith in my Forest Preserve District. The second issue I want to bring to the board is the property directly across the street from this. It's owned by currently the Union Pacific Railroad. The property's at 38 West, 456 Kesslinger. It's adjacent to the railroad tracks. It was once owned by Autumn Green Landscape Service. At the objection to the Lees of Geneva property owner, Autumn Green was granted the permission to build a fairly unattractive metal building. In 2001, Dennis Hassert secured $140 million for the purpose of extending the Metra service to LaFox and Elborn. A portion of this money was used to acquire this property from Autumn Green. In 2006, the rail expansion was completed and the train stations opened. Metra made no use of this property and essentially abandoned the building. The building has been left unsecured and has been vandalized. The main door has been pried open and vagrants have been living on the property. A few years ago, the property was transferred to the from Metra to the Union Pacific Railroad. They too have done nothing to maintain the property and have ignored the Kane County Building Department, who says they've attempted to contact them on about the numerous violations. Today I asked the county to take action on this building, to condemn the actual building itself and tear it down, and to force the Union Pacific Railroad to maintain the property by moving all the trash and debris that's been piled there and mowing the property on a regular basis. And then lastly, I asked the county to review that whole intersection, Leah Drive and Kesslinger, with the increased traffic from all these government facilities. The intersections become fairly hazardous. Just a few weeks ago, in fact, we had a serious accident at the entrance of our subdivision. I asked the County Highway Department to consider the addition of turn lanes to enhance automobile safety at the intersection. Also, Kesslinger is heavily traveled by bicycle traffic who are now forced to ride in the roadway because the shoulder is it's gravel and it has a lot of hazards, bumps and potholes, etc. The road needs to be widened in order to provide some degree of separation of the bicycle and automobile traffic. There are bike paths to the west of the Forest Preserve property in the Mill Creek subdivision, and there's bike paths at the bridge at Peck Road and Kesslinger crossing the railroad tracks. But somehow the connection of those bike paths never happened. So I asked that somebody consider connecting those bike paths as a way to get the bicycle traffic off of Kesslinger. And perhaps there's been a lot of bridge work done in the area, and perhaps they could replace the culvert. The condition after 25 or 30 years of the culverts running under Kesslinger is pretty dismal if you go out there and look at it, plus all the overgrown willows 30 feet tall have dug into that actual bank there. And I asked, perhaps we can have a comprehensive plan of that area, getting rid of the railroad abandoned building, having the Forest Preserve take responsibility for their property, and then making a safe path for the bicycles and automobiles in the area. Okay, thank you. Any questions?
No, thank you very much, Mr. McCellum. Next on the agenda is Mr. Fred Dresser, Fox Valley Court Watch on Judicial Center Sound System.
Chairman Lawson, ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for the time. Each of you has received the attachments on the sound systems currently in use in the different courthouses in the counties surrounding this county. Right now, this county basically lacks fourth out of all the counties in sound systems. As earlier today and this morning, when a board member didn't speak directly into the microphone, it was difficult to hear. Imagine that sitting in the courtroom as a volunteer in the front row and you cannot hear. Now imagine the families of the victims of domestic violence sitting in there and cannot hear sometimes the judge, witnesses, defendants, victims, jury personnel. The presiding judge at times has to ask repeatedly for witnesses in the witness stand, and if you've been in the courtrooms, the witness stand is not that far from the bench, to speak up as nobody can hear them. The judge can't hear them. The jury box is in the same predicament. You cannot hear. The other courthouses in the counties surrounding this county have a far advanced sound system that is basically second to none. We are way behind what they have. The Judicial Center was opened in 1993, and at that time the sound system was basically state-of-the-art. Like any facility or any structure, 20 years have passed, maintenance is required. Currently, that sound system is probably very expensive to keep up. I don't have the figures, I don't have the numbers. You can obtain those. But in 20 years, we've gone from basically, no cell phones, iPads, or what have you, to state-of-the-art stuff that we just don't have in this courtroom and in that facility. The families of the victims deserve to hear the proceedings, to hear what's going on, and to comprehend what's going on in the courtroom. A couple of numbers on domestic violence for those of you not familiar. Last year, Kane County Sheriff, they responded to over 800 domestic battery calls. And they also last year basically delivered over 1,200 orders of protection. Domestic violence is growing in this county as it is nationwide. 1/3 of all domestic violence cases in this country happen to women. And that's who we see in court more than anybody else. We don't see men in court. We see women in court that are constantly being battered. The sound system needs to be upgraded so that everybody can hear what's going on so that the families can hear. The public is entitled to it. The taxpayers are entitled to it. Please take a look at your budgets. Take a look and see what you can do. If there's something you can do, it will go a long way in expediting the cases and expediting the trials, rather than the judge having to sit at his bench and go, I can't hear you. If I turn away, you can't hear me. And that's what we deal with when we sit in the courtroom. You cannot hear. And that's sitting basically right here. So all we ask as an organization is to take a look at what you can do to help us understand and help the families understand what's going on in the courtroom. Now, our mission, all of you have seen it, but for the people in the audience that haven't, as a Court Watch, the mission of the Fox Valley Court Watch program is to influence court practices to conform to the Illinois Domestic Violence Act and related laws to promote victim safety and abuser accountability, and to create a more informed and involved public. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time this morning. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Dresser. Appreciate it. I think that on both of these issues that we'll take them up at the appropriate committee. For instance, this second one will go over judiciary and public safety. And then the first one we'll figure out between development, transportation, what we do. And then I guess there's a component of cooperation with the Forest Preserve. So with that,
Mr. Chairman?
Anything else for the good of the organization?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Silva?
We did have our FAB Public Health Accreditation Board visits, site visits, and I just want to thank our director, Barb Jeffers, who's left the room. She's really done a magnificent job, and I try to remain very objective with my voice here on the board, but it's very difficult to remain objective when I talk about Director Jeffers. I have a lot of confidence in her decisions, and she just did a phenomenal job for us. And a personal note of thanks for her help in preparing me in my role with these FAB visits. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Silva. I can say as a manager over many, many years, that your expression of confidence in her decisions, she's brought forward a decision today at this meeting of a person who has provided nearly $250,000 of additional revenue to the county. And I understand that we thank and we express our respect. And she comes to the podium, gives an extensive recommendation, and she's told to wait, which that is the prerogative of this board. And we all need to exercise patience and understanding. But I've found as a manager, employing people and also managing people, that the actions of the support of board members and stakeholders far more important. That's far more important.
Absolutely.
So, could I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Heyman?
I was going to say something.
Second, Mr. Fraz. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Oh, Joe, excuse me, before we break up.
I had my hand up. I just want to congratulate Joe Heyman. He's leaving PACE after 38 years of service. He retired this week, and I'd like to congratulate him.